airplane mode, and don't forget to mute. Always put yourself on mute so there's no unnecessary distractions during the webinar when the webinar is ongoing. When asking a question, please state your name and your affiliation first before throwing in your questions. Also always speak with clarity. Please be courteous and do not engage in the chat with others while the webinar is ongoing. And the organizers reserve its right to disengage everyone from the webinar who won't follow the guidelines. So I think we will start soon. Good afternoon. My name is Mary, and I will be the host for today's session, the selection of research design. Up next is the Philippine National Anthem.
Glory to you, Almighty, for gathering us today. Give us the fortitude to conquer life's challenges so we can excel and be upright in everything that we do. Guide us to be united in diversity, that we may continue to serve and love one another. Amen.
Okay, to officially start this afternoon's program, may we please welcome Dr. Arnel Bravo, the Director of the Office of Graduate Studies.
Thank you so much, MJ. A pleasant afternoon to everyone. I'm very much delighted to join all of you this afternoon. Let me give you a brief rationale about these ongoing seminars for graduate studies students, which we call Transforming Research into Publications, or simply TREAP. This series of seminars aim to immerse and help you, our dear students, with the basics of research methods and other related research topics to be given by graduate studies faculty and other resource persons so that you would be able to produce publishable research articles. The mode of delivery may vary depending on the contextual variations that the resource speaker may employ. I know that it is not easy to write a research paper for some of you, but in view of our university's mandate and as per CHED's directive, all MA students will not be allowed to graduate unless he or she has published an article. This is one context that we want you to be equipped with the necessary skills needed to publish a paper. Every month, a graduate studies department will sponsor a webinar rather, for all of you. So you would be helped in the rigors of preparing your research papers and hopefully your thesis or dissertations for journal publication purposes. In this afternoon session, we are lucky to have with us a distinguished faculty member who will navigate you to the methods and processes of selecting your research design, which will serve as the blueprint for your data collection and analysis. My dear students, take advantage of all the efforts being extended by the Office of the Graduate Studies and your respective graduate studies department, as we are earnest in our desire to produce graduate students who can publish scholarly research. Welcome to this event and enjoy this learning opportunity. Once again, good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arnel.
Welcome.
All right, so I will introduce the speaker for today. Dr. Dennis H. Pulido is full professor in the Department of Language and Literature, Far Eastern University. He was the former IAS, Associate Dean for Special Projects and Director of the University Research Center. He holds a PhD in Applied Linguistics, has presented research papers in local and international conferences, and has published in local and international journals. His research interests include discourse analysis, computer-mediated communication, contrastive rhetoric, language teaching, and deconstruction. He is currently the treasurer of the Linguistic Society of the Philippines. Everyone, let us please welcome Dr. Dennis Pulido.
Thank you, MJ, for the introduction. I hope my sound is clear. Yes. So let me try to share my screen. Share screen. Share. Oh, okay. I can't see my chat box, sorry. Okay, anyway, so thank you for the invitation, Dr. Bravo and Dr. Gonzalez. It's such an honor and a privilege to be invited to discuss selecting research design for publishable journal articles. Okay. So first off, so here are the instructions. So I will show you a series of pictures, and then based on the picture, try to identify the building or the object. And then you may type your answer in the chat box. I can't see the chat box now, so maybe MJ can take note of the answers of the audience.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know when you're showing your slide, how do you see the chat box? I can. Oh, anyway, just please take note of it. Okay, first picture. Okay. So what is this building? Please type your answer in the chat box. MJ, could you please read the answers they gave?
I will. So, Sir Dennis, can you repeat the instruction again?
I will show a series of pictures and then try to guess the building or the object that is shown in the picture.
Okay, got it. Sige. Let's give everybody time to answer.
And yeah, I
Jason
can
Joven
see.
said library.
Okay.
Ma'am Gina Luna says hospital. And then a lot of people say university, a school, a music school. FU campus, Perseus says. Ma'am Feli says school. Maya,
School.
Arteta, school, say school. Yep. So a lot of people are saying school.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. It's the floor plan of a bit. I can
it's
see
a
the
floor
chat now.
plan.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
yay.
Thank you, MJ. Actually, wait, that is the floor plan of the Malacanang Palace. Okay. So this is the floor plan of the Malacanang Palace. Okay. So, this is Jose R. Bacani said it's a floor plan. Yes, it's the floor plan of Malacanang. Okay, so nobody got it correct. Let's go to the next picture. Try to guess this one. What building is this? Anyone who would like to guess? Coliseum, UST campus, UST. Let's have two more answers. School of Music, Imam Lulu. Well, actually, this one is the Buckingham Palace. That's a floor plan of the Buckingham Palace. How about this one? I'll show you another picture. Maybe someone can already guess this one. What's this object? It's a plane. Yes, it's a plane. A jet plane. A fighter jet. A jet plane. It's a jet plane. Actually, it is the Concorde. Okay. It's the Concorde. It was the fastest jet plane on the planet. Okay. It was the fastest jet on the planet. It only took a few hours to travel from London to the US. Okay. However, it has been decommissioned. Okay. This one, maybe someone can guess this one. What is this object? Or what are these objects? Okay. Mr. Bakani said it's Apollo 11. Anyone else who would like to guess? Rocket ship. Yeah, that's a rocket ship. There's a rocket ship there. Um, this one was used to go to a satellite, a rocket ship. Okay, rocket. So Mr. Bakani got it correct. This is the Apollo 11, the spacecraft that took the first men to the moon. Okay, and then the last one. What is this object? So what is this object? Anyone who can guess this object? It's something really big. Nuclear reactor? No, it's not a nuclear reactor. Mr. Tolentino said it's the Death Star. Mr. Bautista, NASA laboratory, NASA, Miss Macau. Okay, let's see what it is. Electrical circuit. So this is the blueprint for the Death Star. Top view of a Byzantine compound. Okay. So this is the Death Star, planet-destroying device that was developed by the Galactic Empire under Emperor Palpatine. Okay, so why did I show this floor plans and blueprints to all of you? What I want to show, what I want to tell you through these examples is that when you want to understand a phenomenon, when there's an event or a practice or an idea that you want to explore, okay, you see that phenomenon, you observe that phenomenon. But how will you analyze it? How will you be able to account for it? How will you be able to find out the reasons why the phenomenon or certain phenomena happen? You use that through the research design that you will use in your study. And just like these plans, the plans that you saw, the floor plans of Malacanang and Buckingham Palace, the blueprints for Concord, Apollo 11, and the Death Star, they are very different from uh, what they actually look like. Okay? They're very different. So in order for you to understand the phenomenon, in order for you to conduct a research, okay, you have to look beyond what is superficial in the phenomenon, what is obvious, and you have to dig down deeper. And you can achieve this by using different research designs. Okay, so this is the outline of this presentation. Okay, so we have the introduction. We're done with the introduction. I showed you a series of pictures, blueprints, and floor plans. And then afterwards, we'll go to some of the technicalities of selecting a research design. Then afterwards, we'll go to the practicalities of selecting a research design. Then afterwards, I will give some personal notes as regards my experience as a researcher, as a graduate student, and also as a thesis and dissertation advisor. And finally, the conclusion. So first, research design, the definition. Most of the entries here are readily available on the net, so you can view them. Oh, sorry. I just have to okay. So the research design refers to the overall strategy that you choose to integrate in the different components of the study in a coherent and logical way, thereby ensuring you will effectively address the research problem. It constitutes the blueprint for the collection, measurement, and analysis of data. Note that the research problem determines the type of design you should use and not the other way around. Okay, so research design, more than being a plan, it's a strategy. So remember, there is this concept, there is this phenomenon that you want to study. Okay, and that phenomenon has various components, okay, or variables. So you have to systematically collect them. Okay, you cannot just gather data and then just let it stay there. Okay, you have to systematically organize them. Okay, more than the collection. And then, of course, there's also measurement. So after collecting the data, what will you do with it? You will measure it. Okay, and then you will analyze the data, of course. Now, you have to remember that in most types of research, we are after patterns. We look for patterns. We look for patterns related to that phenomenon or to that concept. So in trying to identify the patterns related to that phenomenon, then that's when we gather data, we measure data, we analyze data. Okay? And research design will help us in analyzing the data. Now, there are two types of research design. We have the quantitative research design. We also have the qualitative research design. We also have the mixed method, or some students call it the quanti-quali method. Okay, so the quanti-quali design, mixed method, research design. Let's start with the quantitative research design. Quantitative research design relates to the design of a research project which uses quantitative research methods. The design varies depending on the method used, which could be telephone interviews, face-to-face interviews, online surveys, or surveys by post, for instance. Other methodologies include SMS or test message surveys or physical counts. So based on my experience in the graduate school, many students prefer the use of surveys. Okay. Before the period of the pandemic, some of them also conducted face-to-face interviews. Okay. But now, given the situation that we are experiencing, a lot of students prefer to conduct surveys using either Google Drive or OneDrive. So again, quantitative research design relates to the design of a research project which uses quantitative research methods. And what are the examples under quantitative research design? First, we have descriptive research. Okay? Descriptive research is a type of research that is used to describe the characteristics of a population. It collects data that are used to answer a wide range of what, when, and how questions pertaining to a particular population or group. Okay. So it describes the characteristics of a certain number of individuals. Okay, so there's sampling for this one. So it's not meant to describe the whole population on uh, in this kind of research. Sampling is usually used. Okay, data that may answer the questions of what, when, and how are collected, okay, to answer specific questions. Next one, we have correlational research. Correlational research is a type of non-experimental research in which the researcher measures two variables and assesses the statistical relationship between them with little or no effort to control extraneous variables. So what are those examples of uh, variables? So we have gender, age, economic status, educational attainment. Okay, these are some of the variables that are identified, and the participants or the respondents in the study are grouped according to the preferred variables of the researcher. Okay? And then the next one is causal comparative design. A causal comparative design is a research design that seeks to find relationships between independent and dependent variables after an action or event has already occurred. The researcher's goal is to determine whether the independent variable affected the outcome or dependent variable by comparing two or more groups of individuals. So what are the examples of independent variables? So there's age, gender, economic status. These are examples of independent variables, okay? Meaning they're already there. Okay? What are the examples of dependent variables? So an example of this would be test scores. Okay? They depend on the ability of an individual. Proficiency in a language. Again, that is dependent on the respondents of the study. So, causal comparative design, we have the dependent variables and the independent variables. The next one is experimental research. Experimental research is a study that strictly adheres to a scientific research design. It includes a hypothesis, a variable that can be manipulated by the researcher, and variables that can be measured, calculated, and compared. Most importantly, experimental research is completed in a controlled environment. The researcher collects data and results will either support or reject the hypothesis. This method of research is referred to a hypothesis testing or a deductive research. So in an experimental research, there is the control group and you also have the experimental group. And again, we have the variables. Independent, we also have dependent variables. Okay. And then you have your hypotheses. Okay. So you either accept or reject the hypothesis that you formulated. So that's for quantitative research design. Next, we have qualitative research design. Qualitative research is defined as the study of the nature of phenomena, including their quality, different manifestations, the context in which they appear, or the perspectives from which they can be perceived, but excluding their range, frequency, and place in an objectively determined chain of cause and effect. This formal definition can be complemented with a more pragmatic rule of thumb. Qualitative research generally includes data in form of words rather than numbers. If quantitative research design includes data in form of numbers, qualitative research generally includes data in the form of words. And what are some of the items under qualitative research design? First, we have phenomenological research. Phenomenological studies examine human experiences through the descriptions provided by the people involved. These experiences are called lived experiences. The goal of phenomenological studies is to describe the meaning that experiences hold for each subject. This type of research is used to study areas in which there is nil knowledge. So the data collected here would be based on the experiences of the participant or the participant. And these experiences are analyzed, categorized, and theorized as regards how it is, how they are related to a certain phenomenon or phenomenon. So that's phenomenological research. The next one is grounded theory or GT. So grounded theory is a research method concerned with the generation of theory which is grounded in data that has been systematically collected and analyzed. It is used to uncover such things as social relationships and behaviors of groups, known as social processes. It was developed in California, USA, by Glasser and Strauss during their study Awareness of Dying. It is a general methodology for developing theory that is grounded in data which is systematically gathered and analyzed. So, most of the studies conducted by graduate students are theory driven, meaning they have this theory or they have these theories and they use these theories as lenses, as a lens or lenses to analyze the data that they gather. On the on the contrary, grounded theory first starts with the collection of data. Okay. This data, they are categorized. Okay. There's also notation. Okay. And then sometimes, again, sometimes there is revision and also a a second phase of collection of data. And then again, categorization, notation, and then eventually a theory is developed as regards the uh, phenomenon related to the data that was collected. Okay. After grounded theory, now we have ethnographic research. Okay. Ethnographic research is a qualitative method where researchers observe and or they may interact with the study's participants in their real life environment. Ethnography was popularized by anthropology, but it is used across a wide range of social sciences. Okay. So a part of ethnography would be observation. Okay. So you may record the participants given that they gave their consent for the recording, the video recording, or the audio recording of their activities. And then while you are recording them, you are supposed to take down notes while you are observing them. And part of ethnography would be the observer's paradox. I mean, you are in the setting in which the research is being but being conducted rather, but you don't participate in that. You're just there as an observer. Okay. So aside from uh, the recordings, the notes, then you may also interview them, okay, to gather pieces of information that might not have been recorded or pieces of information that cannot be accounted for by taking down notes or mere observation. The next type of qualitative research is historical research. Historical research enables you to explore and explain the meanings, phases, and characteristics of a phenomenon or process at a particular point of time in the past. We differentiate historical research as a research strategy from the research of history, which refers to research in the discipline of history. Okay, so research in history is different from historical research. Okay, sometimes historical research is conducted to shed light on contemporary phenomenon or events. Okay. The next one is the case study research. Basically, a case study is an in-depth study of a particular situation rather than a sweeping statistical survey. It is a method used to narrow down a very broad field of research into one easily researchable topic. Okay. Sometimes a case study is conducted when in a former study there is something like a deviation from the norm. When you conduct a research, okay, sometimes you use your findings will result to something like a bell curve. So there's a bell, you know the meaning of you know what a bell looks like. So it's tapered at the two ends, then there's a bulge at the middle. So sometimes the results of the research will be like that. But then there are also instances in which there are findings or data that stand out. In that case, a case study may be conducted to further understand the existence of that deviation. Okay. All right. So those are some of the technicalities. The definitions I gave are very broad and they are uh, also available on the internet. Um, I cannot discuss each one of them thoroughly because usually in my classes it would take me 3 hours just for the discussion of quantitative studies, sometimes even more, sometimes 6 hours. And then the same with qualitative study. Okay. But I'm only given an hour and a half, so I cannot go through them uh, thoroughly. And most probably you come from this different disciplines. I come from the discipline of linguistics, so I am not familiar with the rigors of the other disciplines. Okay. However, these definitions I gave you are very generalizable, so they may be applied in studies that belong to different disciplines. However, you have to remember that based on your discipline, you also have your specializations, rigors, and unique okay, parts that may be included in your research. So now this time we'll go to the practicalities. Okay. So the first one is the selection of research design. And I labeled this as R2D2. Okay. So why R2D2? So you know R2D2 is an android who belongs to the Star Wars universe. Okay. He appeared in episode 4, Star Wars. Okay. He was the one who delivered the message from Princess Leia which was supposed to be sent to Obi-Wan Kenobi, but in the process, it was intercepted by Luke Skywalker. Okay. So why R2D2? In the selection of research design, okay, I think this is probably one of the more tasking parts for the students. Okay. My thesis advisees, sometimes I have a difficult time with this one. Okay. So what you have to do to select the appropriate research design. First one, this is very obvious. Read. Okay. So what will you read? Okay. So you want to study a phenomenon. You want to study a concept. Okay. You want to write a research paper about it. You want to write a thesis about it. So what do you do with it? Okay. You look for research papers. You look for journal articles related to the phenomenon or the topic. And if you will be able to find those articles, those journal articles related to the phenomenon, then you will be able to discover the methodology that was used by the researchers. So most probably, regardless of concept or phenomenon, okay, a lot of researchers have already studied those phenomena or concepts. So all you have to do is to read them and take note of their theoretical framework and also their methodology. How did they conduct the study? So read everything. If your advisor tells you to read one article, look at the references, and then try to find those articles which are included in the reference list. And then you read again, you discover more about your topic, you discover more about the methodology, you discover more about the research design that was used to analyze that concept or phenomenon that you want to study. So read. The second one is replicate. Okay. Um, Replication is accepted in graduate studies. Even published journal article, sorry, some published journal articles specifically indicate in their papers that theirs is a replication of a study that was conducted before. Okay, so try to replicate what others have done before and try to see if your results will be similar or different from those that have conducted the study before. Okay. So after reading, you try to replicate those studies. So R2, read, replicate. Next one, okay, diversify. So what do we mean by diversify? So you already have your research design. You already have your approach. Okay? You have chosen one. But you just don't stick with that single approach. Okay? Try to find out how the other approaches are applicable in your research. Don't just stick with one. Okay? So you look at various studies using different research designs, and then eventually you will be the one to choose the research design that you will use in your study. Do not just stick with one, okay? One research design. You look at the other research designs so that you will be familiar with how that phenomenon or uh, concept is studied and analyzed. Okay. But eventually, you have to choose one or two that would best fit your research and then develop. Okay. So you have read journal articles related to your uh, topic, and then you want to replicate the research design that was used by the authors. Okay, you have looked at other research designs related to your topic. Now, this time, it is possible for you to develop your own research design by combining different approaches that are complementary to each other. This is possible, okay? You can develop your own. But first, you have to master the concepts related to the approaches included in the journal articles that have already been published. But again, it is possible for you to develop your own. Okay. So in the selection of research design, what would be feasible in your paper? So remember R2D2. R2, read, replicate, D2, diversify, and develop. So that's the selection of research design. Of course, if you really want to conduct research, you don't stop there. You apply the research design. Okay. So after the selection, we have the application of research design. And this time we have R2D2. So now we'll have C3PO. Okay. So first, contemplate. Okay. Um, contemplate is synonymous with reflection. Okay. So you reflect on how you are going to use this research design in your study. You also reflect on what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. You reflect on the possible problems that you will encounter or the difficulties that you might experience in using your research design. Okay. And of course, when you contemplate, uh, you can do brainstorming on your own, but it would be better if you can take notes of your thoughts. Okay, write them down so that you can go back to your notes whenever you want to review something, or when you experience what do you call it? A crossroad in your research, or you experience a stumbling block. So you go back to your reflections, you go back to your contemplations. Change. So that's the next C. So what do you change? So after reflecting on your studies, uh, if you feel like there is something that needs to be modified, okay, maybe in the approach or in the instrument, then don't hesitate to change it. But of course, remember, all these changes that you are going to make must have basis. And where will you get your basis for this? You can get them from the journal articles that you've read. So let's say you are following this approach, and then in another journal article, you saw that the authors modified it a bit, they tweaked it a bit, and you want to adapt that. So go ahead, you can do it. Okay. That former study will serve as basis for your use of modifications or changes in your research. Now, the next one is conduct. Okay. So you have already selected your research design. You have you have previewed some instruments, or some people have reviewed your instruments. Okay. It's time to conduct your study. Okay, so it's time to disseminate the instrument. Okay, so you have to conduct your study. But when you conduct your study, there's something that you have to do first. Okay? You have to do, you have to pilot test it. Okay. I find this very effective. So let's say you want to conduct a survey among 100 students. Okay. So before you distribute the instrument to all of the students, you might want to pilot test it. Okay. Maybe 5 students, 10 students. So run the instrument first and then tabulate the data and see if there are parts in the survey or in the interview that need to be changed based on the results of the survey or the interview. So pilot test, okay? And then if you, after you pilot test it, you may want to overhaul it, okay? You don't destroy everything and start from scratch. Rather, if there are parts that need to be revised, then you may do so. And then you can conduct a pilot test again, and then get back the results, and then try to find out if the items are valid. Okay, uh, if the results were able to answer some of the questions, some of your research questions. Okay, so if there are still parts that need to be changed, you can still revise it. Okay. So you will notice that in the application of a research design, it's very cyclical. Okay, so you reflect, you modify, you conduct, and then you can do it over and over again until you have refined your instrument, until you are satisfied with your instrument. Okay. So this is a preemptive measure. Okay. Before you, let's say, submit your journal article for publication, and then before you submit your thesis or dissertation for defense. This is a preemptive measure because there are times when the reviewer or the panelists will see that there's something missing in the research design, and consequently, okay, the data generated, okay, did not answer the research questions or incomplete. Okay. So you may want to explore doing this, okay, in the application of a research design, reflecting on your instrument, reflecting on the results, conducting a pilot test, and then most probably modifying or changing some of the items there. Next one. So after some of the practicalities, I will discuss some of my personal notes as a researcher and as a thesis and dissertation advisor. So first, as a researcher, uh, the first time I got published was in 2001 or 2003. I think 2003. So that's many years ago. And it was an article in a college journal. The editor sent a call for papers, and then uh, I I submitted one. So I really wanted to do some research, but I didn't know how to start with it. So being a literature major, I went back to, of course, my background. Okay, you want to do a research, of course, you have to have a research design, you have to have a theory, or you have to have an approach. So I went back to my background. I was graduated with a degree of Bachelor of Arts major in literature from UST in 1999. So I went back to my roots and I chose archetypal criticism. So I used that to analyze what's this novel? The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. Okay, there were many biblical allusions there, so I used archetypal criticism. And then when I when I was writing my master's thesis, my advisor then was Dr. Efred Abueg. So again, I went back to my background, and right from the start, I've been really fascinated with uh, deconstruction by Jacques Derrida. There are 5 types of deconstruction. There's Derridian, and as far as I can remember, there's also one by, it was this guy, the one about I forgot his surname. The one about power. Okay. And there are 3 other types of deconstruction, but I am most inclined to Derrida's deconstruction. So of course I had to read his works, because if you want to use philosopher's theory, okay, or a literary theory, you have to read the original readings. And of course, I accessed those of grammatology, which was quite thick, okay, and all his other writings. But of course, they were very confusing. So I didn't understand a lot of what I read back then. So what I did was I looked for other studies that used deconstruction in their paper. So fortunately, I was able to come across Dr. Isagani Cruz's book. It was a collection of writings that use deconstruction. And then fortunately also because of reading those articles, I was able to access one of Derrida's essays in which he deconstructed the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. Okay. So after that, I was able to realize that these are the steps that you want to do when you want to deconstruct a text. So I was able to outline the steps involved in
Recording
deconstructing a
stopped.
text. And then eventually that thesis got published in a Scopus Index journal in 2011. Okay. And then my journey as a researcher continued in my PhD program. In 2 subjects, we were given around 15 to 20 research articles that we needed to read and analyze in one term. So that's a total of 13 weeks. So given that time, it was really difficult. We only had 1 or 2 weeks. We had only had 1 week to read 1 or 2 articles. And then of course I also had my other PhD subjects. And of course I was also teaching at that time. Okay. But the good thing about that is it exposed us to different approaches, mostly quantitative. Okay. But there were also some qualitative elements. Okay. And then I was able to publish another article on my own. This time I really started from scratch. It's under contrastive rhetoric. Okay. And I also gathered data and analyzed them. Then eventually, I collaborated with other colleagues, and we also have our publications. Okay. So that's my experience as a researcher. It took me many years and a lot of readings before eventually I was able to synthesize a research design that I used in my dissertation. For my dissertation, my research design was qualitative, okay? But it came from different disciplines. So I synthesized uh, theories coming from, of course, linguistics, social psychology, and the emerging field of computer-mediated communication at that time. So I really had to do a lot of reading. So that's my experience as a researcher when it comes to research design. So what I can infer from that is that you really have to do a lot of readings. You cannot do away with reading and analyzing the research designs that were used in the studies. Now, this time as thesis and dissertation advisor, okay, what are my experiences? I think one of the greatest challenges for me when I become an advisor is a student who wants to do quantitative research. Quantitative research is not my specialization. I know some things about it, but in application, it's only up to, I can only conduct a frequency count. That's the limit of my quantitative research ability. So if I have an advisee who wants to conduct quantitative research, I advise him or her to make sure that he or she has a statistician who can best analyze the quantitative aspects of his or her studies. I know my limitations, so that's what I tell them. But if I have students, graduate students who want to conduct qualitative research, then what I tell them is first, you have to tell me what you want to do. And then you also have to tell me what kind of data do you want to collect. And then that's where our discussion takes off. Okay. There are many qualitative research designs. And of course, unless you tell me what you really want to do, I wouldn't know what advice to give to you. Okay. And also in my experience as a reviewer in local and international journals, the research design is very important because like what I stated
Recording in progress.
earlier, there are instances in which the data collected did not answer or they were insufficient to answer the research questions. So if that's the case, the paper is of course rejected. But I do give advice as to what the writer can do. So I tell the writer to look for this article or look for this author. You might want to read these articles and try to revise the paper. Okay. So I don't reject a paper outrightly, only if the findings do not answer the research questions. But if there is the possibility for revision, of course, I prefer that. So those are my experiences as a researcher, as a budding researcher at that time. So I don't belong to the top 2% of researchers in the world. So I have my PhD, that's true. I have my publications, that's also true, but I don't consider myself as a seasoned researcher yet. I'm still developing my research ability. Okay. I still read journal articles that can be used to conduct studies. So there, I can only give advice as regards research design as far as I know, and up to how far the distance the student is willing to take. Okay. But if you really want to publish a journal article, okay, so try to review a lot of journal articles and try to uh, analyze the research design used in the journal articles. Okay. So in conclusion, the phenomenon or concept that you want to study might sound like the language of R2D2. So R2D2 is a robot and he speaks in blips and high notes. Okay. However, your research design is that C3PO that will provide you with a glimpse of understanding. So whenever C3PO says something, it whenever R2D2 says something, C3PO translates it. Okay? So think of the phenomenon that you want to study as R2D2 and the research design that you will use to analyze that phenomenon is your C3PO to decode that phenomenon. So that ends my presentation and thank you for listening. May the fortitude to conduct research be with you.
Thank you, Dr. Pulido. That was very informative. I like the metaphor that you use, mga C3PO and R2D2. All right, for this juncture of the program, we will have Ms. Maika Amelita Chavez, another faculty from the Department of Language and Literature, who will give her reaction.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Mamaika.
Okay, thank you, Sir Dennis, for such an insightful talk about selecting research design. Well, selecting research design is a very essential step in conducting research, and Dr. Pulido started off by sharing blueprints of various objects and buildings as an analogy for research design, which enables us to understand certain phenomena. Indeed, research designs are like blueprints of procedures for any research endeavor. They are very important since they map out the broad assumptions about a research topic as well as the detailed methods of data collection and analysis, which are underpinned by appropriate theoretical concepts. Dr. Pulido also discussed the different methods of research, qualitative, quantitative, and the mixed methods, and the corresponding strategies under each type. Although he mentioned that he cannot discuss them in detail, but his description of those strategies are actually very informative. In the selection of research design, Dr. Pulido labeled it as R2D2, read, replicate, diversify, and develop. And just like MJ, I'm very fascinated with the use of those allusions. Through reading, one may be exposed to various theories and research methodologies that can enhance the knowledge and understanding of a particular research topic. And as Dr. Pulido said, after reading a lot about a certain topic, one may replicate that research to be able to find out whether the results of that previous study is similar to the replication. Diversification is also a very important aspect of R2D2 because in looking at the various research designs, one is able to choose those that are appropriate for one's research topic. And after going through the various research designs, one may be led to developing his or her own research. So that's basically R2D2. I really like it. Okay, and then of course, when you've chosen your research design, your next step is to apply that design. And Dr. Pulido came up with C3PO, namely contemplate, um, change, conduct, pilot, and overhaul. I like that he emphasized the pilot testing of instruments, because in this step, one may be able to find out whether the research instrument will help answer the research questions. Mm, The selection of a research design is largely based on the nature of the research problem. However, it is also influenced by the researcher's experiences and expertise, as well as the intended audience. And as Dr. Pulido related to us his experience as a researcher and as a thesis and dissertation advisor, he has shown us that all these experiences and expertise will influence one's choice of a research design. Moreover, the choice of research design is also determined by the research philosophical worldview, such also known as paradigm. And Dr. Pulido mentioned it while talking about his research experience in the master's and doctorate level. So this paradigm will guide you in your choice of research design, and how your research will proceed. Mm, what else can I say? Well, overall, the selection of research design, as I said, is largely dependent on three things: the experience of the researcher, and his or her expertise, the research problem, and the audience, or the ones who will eventually consume the outcome of the research. I am certain that my students who I have invited to attend this webinar have learned a lot of information that they can use in writing their thesis proposal. So thank you very much, Dr. Pulido, for this very informative talk.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Micah, for your reaction. And thank you so much for giving a summary of what Dr. Pulido has mentioned today. All right, so the next part of this program will be the open forum. Before we begin, though, with the open forum, I'd like to remind everyone to please answer the evaluation form that is in the chat box posted by Ma'am Anne Salaysay. So that would give us good feedback for this particular webinar. All right, so we can start now with the open forum. If anybody would have any questions, anything that they would like to ask Dr. Pulido, please put them in the chat, or else you can also unmute yourself, or just raise your hand first and then unmute yourself, so we can be a little bit orderly in the way that we approach this. All right, so Dr. Pulido, John Patrick Mecha has mentioned in the chat, in social studies, one of the components of the manuscript is conceptual or theoretical framework. Is it necessary to include in the manuscript for publication? Why or why not?
Okay. When you want to submit an article for publication in a journal, I always tell my students that you have to include the theoretical framework, because the theoretical framework, as I stated earlier, they serve as the lens or lenses that you will use in analyzing your data. And the theories that you will use are also related to your methodology. Okay? And eventually, in the discussion part of your paper. Okay? Conceptual framework, sometimes journal articles require it, sometimes they don't. So you have to find out the requirements of the journal. Okay. But if you're using grounded theory, now that's a different approach. Okay. So remember that there is research that is theory driven. So you have the set of theories, and then you will use those theories to analyze the data. And then there's also grounded theory. You start with data, and then you come up with a theory. So if you are a beginning researcher, I suggest you include the theoretical framework.
I think we thank you for that, Dr. Pulido. They have another question, another and last question. When converting the thesis, is it necessary to include the RRL? And what is your opinion or stand about abolishing the RRL section in the thesis?
First question, with converting the thesis, I am assuming that you will convert the thesis into a publishable journal article. I hope I'm correct with that
I think
assumption.
so, yeah.
Okay. So, my experience, my master's thesis has around 150 pages. If I remember correctly, remember this was 2006, sorry, yeah, 15 years ago. I think it has 150 pages. And then I had to submit it to a journal. So from 100 to 150 pages. So this is Arial 12 double space. I had to compress it to 20 pages double space. Okay, font 12, Arial. I still remember that part. So as regards the RRL, of course, I cannot totally disregard it. So what I did was I synthesized it in the introduction. Okay, I synthesized them in the introduction. The things I removed would be limitations of the study. What's the other section? The definition of terms, the conceptual framework. I had to remove that, but I had to retain the theoretical framework. And then what else? There were so many parts that I had to remove from the paper. But the RRL, I integrated them in the introduction. And then when I submitted them for publication, um, the paper was returned to me, and there were still so many remarks asking me to remove some parts of the RRL. Okay, they noticed that they were like paragraphs from the RRL section. Now, so that's my answer. It's not necessary to include a separate RRL section, but you can integrate it in the introduction. But again, I go back to my answer. You have to know the requirements of a journal because there are some journals that require a separate section for their RRL. Okay, so the best thing to do is you look at the articles published in that journal and try to find out if they require a separate section for the RRL, or if they allow a separate section for the RRL, or if they prefer that the RRL be integrated seamlessly in the introduction. Okay. As regards the second question, what is your opinion stand about abolishing the RRL section in the thesis? Uh, my opinion there is it depends on the institution. Okay, it depends on the institution if the RRL needs to be removed, and probably there's a valid reason why some of them want to have it removed. Okay, if in case it gets removed, you can have other alternatives. For example, asking the students to submit a separate annotated bibliography. This is not necessarily part of the thesis if the RRL part has been removed. This can be a separate formative assessment. So you can ask them to submit an annotated bibliography, and somehow it can serve as an RRL. What would be missing would be the synthesizing part. And then eventually, they can also use these articles in the annotated bibliography in their thesis. Okay. So my opinion, it depends on the institution if they want to abolish the RRL, and perhaps they have a valid reason for removing the RRL section. But if you want an alternative, ask them to submit an annotated bibliography that can be part of their formative assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Pulido. I think John Patrick Mecha said, thank you so much for your answer. All right. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question still? While we're waiting for other people, Dr. Pulido, I have a question for you. It's a little bit informal. Pero my question would be, kasi I noticed there are a lot of students here. Okay, there's another question now from Jet Ramos. Jet Ramos is raising their hand.
Hi.
Jet, would you
Hello.
like to? Hi.
Hi. It's not actually a question, but I want to thank my very good friend, Dr. Pulido and Dr. Gonzalez and everyone else. Of course, Ms. Chavez is also a friend for this one. And sorry I was late, but of course, I wanted to attend because I really want to refresh my memory. Talagang mahirap talaga tumatanda. And I'm very happy to see friends here like Mr. Erfe, Ms. Ignacio, and others. Yes, and maganda rin na from time to time naaalala ko kung anong mga types of research para at least hindi ako naguguluhan. And of course, sa akin lang, sa aking practice lang, it would be good to ask the advice of your peers so that you would not be in the dark, and it means that they would help you. So thank you very much, Dr. Pulido. I'm really happy to be here to listen to you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jeff.
much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Basta may ganito, dadalo ko.
Thank you so much, Jet Ramos. We have another question in the chat from Marichu Benavides. And Marichu says, what's the difference between theoretical framework and conceptual framework?
Okay, that is a question that my students always ask when they write their thesis. Okay, so first remember that the theories, okay, you will use those theories to analyze your data, okay, and then the analysis are supposed to answer the research questions. Okay, the difference is that so of course theoretical concept theories, you use theories, conceptual framework, how will you approach that phenomenon or problem that you want to analyze. So what are the possible steps that you can take, and how can you use certain variables or components? On the other hand, again, theoretical framework, how are you going to use these theories in analyzing your phenomenon? Whereas conceptual framework, what are the other procedures aside from using the theories to analyze your data? What are the other procedures that you will undertake in conducting the research or the study?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pulido. So, Bale, the theoretical framework is more on concerning the theories, and the conceptual framework is more on like the process or the methods that you're gonna undertake. Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question relating to research and research design? Okay, it looks like there's no one else, but I do have a last question. Maybe we can have that as our final question. I noticed that we have a lot of students here who are undertaking their thesis, I think, for this semester. So a lot of undergraduate students. And one of the things that my undergraduate students always ask me when they're starting a paper is, I'm so confused, where do I start? And I know that you also mentioned already that, we have to read before we start, but I think it's the actual impetus, like the starting of, actually sitting down and actually doing it. So from a seasoned researcher like yourself, what is your process in actually, starting the research process, aside from the normal, as you mentioned kanina, like the reading and all that? Like, how do you try and start?
Okay. So basically I use two approaches. Okay, first one, the traditional one, I start with the research questions. I ask questions. Okay. What do I want to study? Okay, what do I want to explain, or what do I want to analyze? Okay. Another approach that I use is I start with data. Okay. So remember, this is from a linguistic research point of view. Um, for example, in one of my publications, it's the generic structure potential of Philippine English editorials. So I started with those that are already existing. So I wanted to analyze the rhetorical structure of editorials. So I noticed was I think I was reading some collections of journals. It was a few days of reading, and then I realized it seems that these editorials have a very similar pattern. So let me try to find out. So started with the data, and then I looked for journal articles that also studied editorials, and from there, I I I replicated their research questions. I stated that in the paper itself, and also the framework. So there, I was able to conduct it. I started with the data, and then I looked for possible research, applicable research questions. So there are two approaches that I do. I start with the research questions, that's one. Or number two, I start with the data existing already.
Okay, thank you so much. And then our final question, alam ko sabi ko it's the last question, but we have a question from the FB page of the Department of Language and Literature. And this is from Herson Valdez. So the last question is, what is the connection between the research and the research framework?
What's the connection between the
Between the
and
research and
the
the
research
research
framework?
framework.
Okay, research, that is the activity of discovery. Okay, so you want to discover something about a phenomenon and or a concept. You want to discover something about a phenomenon or a concept, and the research framework will assist you, will guide you. It will serve as your blueprint, your plan, in order to understand that phenomenon or concept. So it can guide you. Remember, it's a blueprint or a plan.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Pulido. So the research framework is our blueprint and our plan. Okay, so I think that concludes our program for today. But before anything else, we would like to have our participants stay because we're going to have a picture taking right before the closing remarks. Okay, so the next part of this program is the awarding of the certificate to Dr. Pulido. So this is the certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Dennis H. Pulido for his valuable contributions as a speaker during the webinar entitled Selection of Research Design, given the 5th day of November 2021 at Far Eastern University, Manila, signed by Dr. Emmanuel Gonzalez and Dr. Arnel Bravo. Thank you so much, Dr. Pulido, for your time today. Thank you so much, Ma'am Micah Chavez, for your time today as the reactor. All right, so for the closing remarks, we would like to invite Dr. Emmanuel Gonzalez, our chair of the Department of Language and Literature.
Thank you, Ms. MJ. Thank you to our speaker, Dr. Dennis H. Pulido, for sharing his expertise to our students in the graduate program and also to the undergraduate program. And also, thank you to the director of the graduate program, Dr. Arnel Bravo, and to IS Dean, Rowena Capulong Reyes, and Associate Dean Mark Isla for this webinar, Transforming Research into Publication or TWIP. This webinar is a great help to us who wants to publish scholarly research. Even we are still in the pandemic, we need to keep knowledgeable with the latest discovery and information on designing a research. Selecting a research design is a strategy for answering your research question using empirical data. It means this is a vital steps for a researcher in making a decision about what to include in your research design. And I think our guest speaker gave a lot to us on this part. So thank you very much again, Dr. Pulido, and to our moderator, Ms. Mary Joy Yu, and to our reactor, Ms. Micah Chavez, and to our faculty na nandito ngayon, maraming salamat. And with these words, I officially close this webinar on selecting a research design, and see you again in our next trip. And stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much, Doc Manny. Pero before everybody goes, we would like to have our picture taking muna. So can everybody please open their cameras? So we would like to capture this moment and this program. So, Ma'am Annalisa, kayo na lang po ba ang mag-take ng picture?
Yes.
Okay. Sige. So we would like to request everyone to please open their cameras. So you'd like to have a group picture with the group. And then Ma'am Annalisa will just let us know when she has finished one page, but we don't know which page we're on. So can we just have the camera open, and then she will let us know when to stop. Kasi hindi po natin alam kung nasaang pahina tayo ng Zoom. All right, so I can see people who are opening their cameras now.
Sige, ma'am. Ready? First page. 1, 2, 3. Second page po. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all done.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Thank you for your interactions. Thank you to all the speakers for today. And goodbye. Have a great night, everyone.
Yes. Good night to you're so